Hi everyone, this video is the continuation for the third unit of e-payment system, e-payment security and digital signature. In the previous video, we have learned about the cryptography and the various methods of cryptography, public and private key methods, RSA and digital signature. In this video, we are going to learn about the digital signature certification process, digital identity and the documents required for digital identity and remote authentication. Coming to the first topic is digital certificate. Digital certificate is issued by a trusted third party which proves sender's identity to the receivers and receiver's identity to the sender. And a digital certificate is a certificate issued by a certificate authority to verify the identity of certificate holder. The certificate authority issues an encrypted digital certificate containing the applicant public key and a variant of other identification information. Digital certificate is used to attach public key with a particular individual or an entity. Digital certificate contains name of the certificate holder, serial number which is used to uniquely identify a certificate, the individual or the entity identified by the certificate, expiry date, copy of certificate holder's public key that is used for descripting message and digital signatures, digital signature of the certificate issuing authority. Digital certificate is also sent with the digital signature and the message. And coming to the digital signature certification process. Here, the Information Technology Act 2000 has provisions for use of digital signatures on the documents submitted in electronic form in order to ensure the security and authenticity of the documents filed electronically. This is secure and authentic way to submit a document electronically. As such, filing done by the companies under MCA 21 e-governments program are required to be filled using digital signatures by person authorized to sign the documents. This digital signature certificate involves of legal warnings, certification agencies, class of DSCs, validity of digital signatures, costing or pricing of digital signatures, obtain digital signature certificates. In this process of legal warning, you can use only the valid digital signatures issued to you. It is illegal to use digital signatures of anybody other than the one to whom it is issued. And the next one is certification agencies. Certification agencies are appointed by the Office of the Controller of Certification Agency under the provisions of IT Act 2000. There are a total of 8 certification agencies authorized by the CCA, that is Controller of Certification Agencies, to issue digital signature certificates. The details of these certification agencies are available on the portal of the Ministry Certifying Authorities. And the next one is class of DSCs. Here DSCs represents the digital signature certificate. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has stipulated a class 2 or above category signing certificate for e-filing under MCA 21. A person who already has the specified DSC, that is digital signature certificate, for any other application can use the same for filing under MCA 21 and is not required to obtain a fresh DSC. And validity of digital signature. The DSCs are typically issued with 1 year validity and 2 year validity. These are renewable on expiry of the period of initial issue. And the next one is costs or pricing of digital signatures. It includes the cost of medium, the cost of issuing the DSC and the renewal cost after the period of validity. The company representatives and professionally required to obtain DSCs are for free to procure the same from any one of the approved certification agencies as per the MCA portal. The issuance costs in respect to each agency vary and are market driven. However, for the guidance of stockholders, the ministry has obtained the cost of issuing of DSCs at the consumer end from the certification agencies. And the DSCs include, and the last one of DSCs obtain digital signature certificate. Digital signature certificate applicants can directly approach certifying authorities with original supporting documents, and self-attested copies will be sufficient. In this case, DSCs can be obtained whenever offered by certification authorities using other eKYC based authentication, and supporting documents are not required in this case. A letter or certificate is issued by a bank containing the DSC applicant's information as retained in the bank's database can be accepted. Such letter or certification should be certified by the bank manager. And the next topic is digital identity. Digital identity is the network or internet equivalent to the real identity of a person or entity, like business or a government agencies, when used for identification in connections or transactions from personal computers, cell phones, or other personal devices. Trusting the link between a real identity and a digital identity first requires someone to validate the identity. Once established, using a digital identity involves some type of authentication, a way to prove it is really you when you are using digital connections like the internet. The more valuable the digital identity, the more work required to validate it and establish secure authentication. For example, you can set up webmail with no validation of your identity other than an email address, and then use the email address and a password to provide authentication. And coming to the digital identity documents. Digital identity documents are EIDVs. That is, electronic identity verification is the use of public and private databases to quickly confirm whether an individual is who they claim to be. Digital identity documents uses personal information such as name, date of birth, social security number, and addresses. The result of trying to confirm the individual's identity could be a match, non-match, or partially match. Electronic identity verification matches the data provided by an individual such as name, date of birth, address against various databases to determine if there is a match. Personal documents that can be serve as sources of data for the verification service include driving license, passports, birth certificates, and citizenship certificates. And various types of databases, both public and proprietary, may be used in electronic identity verification, including credit bureau data, police data, and vehicle history data. And data that can be used as sources of verification include change of address data, postal data, proprietary ownership data, direct marketing data, credit bureau data, electoral roll data, utility data. Coming to the mobile connection, natural gas connection, electricity bills, water services, telecommunication records, and government data such as driver's license, passport, national ID, etc. And authentication factors of these digital identity documents are of three forms. They are knowledge factor, possession factor, biometric factor. Knowledge factor, which is something that the user knows, such as a password, answers to challenge questions, ID numbers, or a PIN. And coming to the possession factor, which is something that the user has, such mobile phone, personal computer, or token. And the last factor is biometric factor, which is something that the user is, such as his or her fingerprint or eye scan or voice pattern. Out of the three factors, the biometric factor is the most convenient to prove an individual's identity. However, having to rely on this sole factor can be expensive to sustain, although having their own unique weaknesses. By combining two or more factors allowing for reliable authentication. It is also recommended to use multi-factor authentication for that reason. And the last topic of this unit is remote authentication. Authentication systems are often categorized by the number of factors that they incorporate. The three factors often considered as the authentication are something you know, for example a password, something you have, for example ID or cryptographic key, and something you are, for example your thumbprint or biometric. Multi-factor authentication is generally more secure than single factor authentication, but some multi-factor authentication approaches are still vulnerable to cases like man-in-the-middle attacks and Trojan attacks. Common methods used in authentication systems can be explained as token, passwords and pin-based authentication, public key authentication, semantic key authentication, SMS-based authentication, biometric authentication, and digital identity authentication. Coming to the token authentication, tokens generally are something the claimant processes and controls that may be used to authenticate the claimant's identity. In e-authentication, the claimant authenticates to a system or application over a network. Therefore, a token used for e-authentication is a secret and the token must be protected. For example, a token may be a cryptographic key that is protected by encrypting it used by a password. And the next type of remote authentication process is passwords and pin based authentication. Passwords and pins are categorized as something you know method. A combination of numbers, symbols, and mixed cases are considered to be stronger than all letter password. Also, the adoption of the transport layer security or secure socket layer features during the information transmission processes will well create an encrypted channel for data exchange and to further protect information delivered. Currently, most security attacks targeted on password-based authentication system. And the next type of authentication is public key authentication. This type of authentication has two parts. One is public key, the other is the private key. A public key is used by a certification authority and is available to any user or server. A private key is known by only the user only. And the next type of authentication, semantic key authentication. When the user sends a randomly generated message encrypted by the secret key to the authentication server, if the message can be matched by the server using the shared secret key, the user is authenticated. When implemented together with the password authentication, this method also provides a possible solution for two-factor authentication systems. And coming to the next type, remote authentication is SMS-based authentication. The user receives password by reading the message in the cell phone and types back the password to complete the authentication. SMS is very effective when cell phones are commonly adopted. SMS is also suitable against man-in-the-middle attacks since the use of SMS does not involve the internet. And the next type of remote authentication is biometric authentication. Biometric authentication is the use of unique physical attributes and body measurements as the intermediate for better identification and access control. Physical characteristics that are often used for authentication include fingerprints, voice recognition, face recognition and iris scans, because all these are unique to every individual separately. Traditionally, biometric authentication based on token-based identification systems such as passports and nowadays becomes one of the most secure identification systems to user protection. A new technological innovation which provides a wide variety of either behavioral or physical characteristics which are defining the proper concept of biometric authentication. And the last type of remote authentication is digital identity authentication. Digital identity authentication refers to the combined use of device behavior, location, and other data, including the email address, account, and credit card information to authenticate online users in the real time. These are the various methods of remote authentication. By this, we have completed the third unit of e-payment systems, in which we have learned about the various cryptography methods, hash functions, private and public key methods, RSA, digital signatures, digital signature certification process, digital identity and the digital identity documents, and remote authentication. Thank you.